Hello everyone, I finally made it. I am up at the top of Mount Grant today. I had kind of an exciting week. We don't get snow here very often, so we're not prepared for it. All of those of you who live in Canada and cold places can go ahead and laugh at me, but I live up a 1.5 mile very steep road. And so when it snows, I'm snowed in. And could I get out in an emergency? Yes, I probably could, but it's kind of fun. I don't have tea with me today. I'll have to eat snow instead. I just hiked across the valley to the neighboring mountaintop. I'm on Mount Grant right now because I think I have enough cell coverage to actually do Facebook Live from here. I'm going to go ahead and switch my phone around so you guys can see. From here, we are looking, this is north towards the top of Vancouver Island, across the water there. And you can see all down here, the water between us is, oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but anyway, that's Vancouver Island you see all the way across there, so that's Canada. I'm in the US, so this is the island of San Juan Island, and the town is Friday Harbor. And this little mountain that we're looking at here, this is called Sugarloaf. There are no houses on top of it. It's a really fun little hike to the top. And this mountain here, you can kind of see the silver roof of a house over there. I live on the other side of that. So on the other side of that mountain, down in the valley, is where the horses and I are. So yeah, it's pretty beautiful. You know what? It is some dedication to tea time, and I have to explain a little bit. This is the 80th tea time. That means for 80 weeks, 80, I have not missed a week. Sometimes it's been a day late because I've been on an airplane or a ferry, or I just forgot what day it was, but I have not missed tea time for 80 consecutive weeks. Sometimes I do post an interview instead of doing it live, but that feels kind of monumental to me. And so here I was, I'm snowed in, my pipes froze, so I had no water in my house. And then last night they thawed, and I got this explosion of water out of the split pipe across all of my modem and my internet connectivity. So I drowned all of my electrical stuff, and I had no internet after that. And I thought, I can't miss my 80th tea time. So here I am at the top of Mount Grant, and what a good excuse. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I love my work with the horses. I'm very, very focused. I don't always take time to do things like hike to the top of Mount Grant. It's only an hour away from where I live, and it's incredibly beautiful. So, for those of you guys who are just joining, this is my view. To my left here is Mount Dallas, which is the mountain next to us. So we've got two little humps there to Mount Dallas. And then we're looking out over the west side of San Juan Island, across the water to Vancouver Island. And that mountain we're looking at right now, I'm actually on the other side of it, down in the valley behind it. And then this is Sugarloaf to the north. And then up there, we have Roche Harbor at the north end of San Juan Island, and then into the Canadian islands beyond that. So it's pretty beautiful, and I am really glad I get to live here. Even if, sometimes I get snowed in, sometimes I have to hike to the next mountain to get enough cell service to talk to you guys. I forgot my tea as I was walking out the door, so you guys can drink tea. I'm gonna eat snow. And it feels like a good way to celebrate the 80th tea time, even if I don't have tea. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Hyperfocus. I released Freedom-Based Training 101, which is the first class of my online course. It's free to everybody. Anybody can watch it. And in Freedom-Based Training 101, we talk about focus changes and how much we want to reinforce focus changes and really get horses thinking. But the thing that I neglect to talk about in Freedom-Based Training 101 is that focus changes are not always good. They are good for freedom-based training for those times that we have no tools, which is what I focus on. But a lot of times students will come to me and they'll say, I'm really trying to get my horse to think more, I'm trying to get them to focus change more, but they're not doing what I tell them to do when I take out my whip or when I pull on the halter. And there's a little bit of a division here that I think I should talk about. And that is, hyperfocus is actually very good for dominant training. You see, there's a sort of functional stress road where there's lots of thinking, there's lots of focus changes, and the horse focuses on whatever is going to make him feel better. And this is really productive for freedom-based training where we don't have any tools to control the horse. So we really want the horse to be good at changing their focus to something that is going to help them feel better. If they feel good enough, then they'll be interested in relationships. Oh, I gotta switch my camera, the eagle's flying by. So we have a bald eagle here visiting us. I mean, how cool is that? He's just soaring around right here next to us. I think he's gonna land in that great big tree, you know? Let's see if I can find him again. He's right behind me. There he is, landed in that big tree. So we have a bald eagle with us for tea time today. That sort of screeching sound, that's him talking to you. It's Tea with Elsa and the bald eagle today. How cool is that? So I really hope I have enough cell service that you guys can see this. It's a really fun moment to share. So I'll switch that around. You can still see the bald eagle in the tree over my head if you look carefully. So, what was I talking about? Somebody should type in, tell me if you can see this eagle. Or maybe I'm talking to myself and you guys can see it in the recording later. That's okay too. Alright, so I was talking about there's a functional state for horses in terms of stress where they can think easily, and if something feels overwhelming to them, they change focus and they think about something else. And that ability to change is really vital in keeping them in a space where they are curious and interested in relationships. That is really important for freedom-based training, where I don't have a halter or a rope or any sort of a tool to force a horse to do something. Everything has to be voluntary. So in Freedom-Based Training 101, I make sure that the first priority is focus changes and reinforcing a thinking horse. But the problem is that that's not always great for dominant training. In dominant training, a lot of times we ask a horse to do something that it doesn't want to do, that it's not going to volunteer to do, that maybe pushes the edge of the comfort zone a little farther than the horse is comfortable for. And when you push that comfort zone a little bit farther than the horse is comfortable with, hyperfocus is actually better than focus changes. You see, when stress gets too high, there is an area before the horse gets overwhelmed that is hyperfocus. And that hyperfocus area is the area where they take direction really well. Okay, once they get overwhelmed, they don't take direction very well anymore. But when they're thinking a lot, they actually tend to be more independent. They don't take direction and instruction from others as well when they're thinking a lot. Okay, they're a little bit more self-propelled and not propelled by someone else's ideas. So if you want to do really good dominant training, it's actually more beneficial to get them a little bit hyper-focused. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, when stress gets too low, if stress gets too low, what happens is eventually you fall asleep. And that makes you unavailable to your friends, but it's a good thing in the long run. It makes you healthy, all sorts of things like that. So there's a lot of training programs that use relaxation as part of their process. And the reason for that is that in that stage of hyperfocus before you fall asleep is another area you're really susceptible to someone's instructions, someone telling you what to do. So in more dominant training, relaxation and the hyperfocus that brings is actually a really good setup for being told what to do. In the other direction, just before the horse gets overwhelmed, there's a period of hyperfixation that is also very, very good for taking directions. That middle road where the horse is really independent and thinking for themselves, sometimes they don't take direction very well when they're thinking for themselves. And in freedom-based training, we have such a slow evolution of training. We don't really need them to take direction well. We are really trying to set them up so that they are interested and curious in the relationship. Their ability to take directions from us is secondary to that. Once they're really good at focus changes, they're really good at thinking, they're really good at being fully interactive in a mental way, then we can ease them into those hyperfocus states where they take direction better. The problem with the hyperfocus states is, if you're relaxed, if you go too far, your horse is going to fall asleep and then they can't take any directions at all. You have to wait for them to wake up again. If it's the hyperfocus on the other end of the spectrum, if it goes too far, it's going to go into overwhelm. And overwhelm is where you get into fight or flight. So that is a really interesting dilemma as a trainer. Is my priority to get my horse thinking so that they are the most curious about me as a partner? That's what we do in freedom-based training. Or is my priority that my horse follow the directions I give them? Because if I want them to follow the directions I give them, it might be better for them to be a little more hyper-focused and a little bit less thinking. You just have to be careful you don't take it too far, because too much hyper-focus, they're either going to fall asleep or they're going to get overwhelmed and they're going to go into fight or flight. So that's sort of a shoulder area. When we have tools, halters, bridles, things like that, where we can control a horse if they do get overwhelmed. We can stop them from going into flight. We can play with that hyperfocus a little bit more than if we have no tools. If we have no tools, we are going to have to develop a more thinking horse who may or may not take direction well. And what happens when they don't take direction well and they're thinking really well is they just make counter offers. I don't really feel like doing what you've suggested, but I have this other idea that I'd like to do. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma. And I just thought I'd talk about that a little bit on this 80th tea time, 80 consecutive weeks. It's kind of amazing to me. I'm not getting any comments from you guys, so I have a feeling my internet is a little bit faulty. I'm hoping I caught all of this recorded anyway, and I'll get it up on YouTube so you guys can watch the replay. It is a beautiful day on Mount Grant. I'm really glad that you guys could join me. I hope you can hear me up here. I hope I have enough cell coverage. And we're going to go ahead and finish this tea time with a little bit of the view. Mount Dallas to the southwest, Vancouver Island across the water in Canada over there, Sugarloaf here in Friday Harbor on San Juan Island, and then up north towards Roche Harbor and all the way into the Canadian Islands. Thank you guys so much for joining me for tea time. I'm going to go ahead and post this now. I'm going to hope it goes through. And thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully I'll have my internet back by next week and we'll do a tea time with the horses again. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm sorry I'm only a little bit available today, but I'll do my best to answer anything that comes up. All right, have a good day, you guys.